Good morning, everyone. My name is Allyson Hall, and we are going to be discussing quality matters and taking the next step in designing your courses with quality in mind. I'm joined by my lovely colleague, Dr. Judy Summers, and Mary Rotundo. Thank you for joining us today as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so I wanted to begin this session with a discussion on how quality is measured. And if we could just open up with a brief discussion on how exactly you measure quality in an online course. So what does that look like? It's often not something intuitive, but something that we all aim for. So what does that quality measurement actually look like? If you could
I would say for me, one of the big pieces is student success. Are the students learning?
Absolutely. So student success definitely as a measurement of quality. And that kind of opens up a whole nother question. What does success look like? Is that in engagement and discussion? Is it being able to improve in one task? Is it passing the course?
Yeah, all of the above. It's the knowing that they are receiving what I want them to receive out of it. The objectives that we are accomplishing, the objectives that we've set out. If I've said they're going to do this, this, and this, have they? And how do I know that?
Absolutely. Okay. So that's great that you bring up the objectives. I'm going to shoot right into the objectives for this session. And today, the hope is that we describe, of course, the quality matters process. What does that look like? We also want to compare the QM process to the FAU e-design process because we have a very similar process that we go through internally here. We also are going to be identifying QM best practices to prepare courses that you are currently designing, that are currently on your roster to be taught for the fall, spring, summer. We want to look at some of the best practices that QM has to offer so that we can design with quality in mind. And also discussing the rationale of the QM process and discussing some of those best practices there as well. Okay, so beginning off, we're going to talk about what Quality Matters actually is. So QM is a nonprofit organization which started with a group of colleagues in Maryland, and they were basically trying to solve the common problem of trying to figure out what quality actually looked like in an online class, as we kind of just talked about. Some people say student success, some people say navigability, others may say the objectives and assessments are clearly aligned and being met. They also wanted to ensure course equivalence across universities. So if you take E&C 1101 at FAU and then you take it at Broward College, can we guarantee that you are meeting the same objectives and that you're walking away with that same information? And so they thought it was very important, and it is very important to develop a standard in online coursework. So they developed a rubric, which we will discuss very briefly, and that rubric is highly proprietary, so we won't be able to view specifics on the rubric, but a very general overview of the rubric. And they also developed course design standards and created a replicable peer review process. And so since 2006, over 6,000 courses have been reviewed and certified using the QM rubric. And I think it's important to talk about why we as a university decided to become involved with Quality Matters. As it stands, QM is the largest organization that recognizes and certifies online classes and looks for quality in these classes. And to date, they remain the kind of the top notch, so to speak, in certifying quality inside of online classes.
Gold standard.
The gold standard, yep. Very nice way to put it. So we want to make sure that the classes that we are designing and that what we are helping faculty to design have that gold seal of approval, have that stamp of approval, and that we're meeting those standards so that our students are succeeding in their classes and taking the necessary steps to move on in their coursework. Okay, so according to QM, there are several components, so to speak, of quality, and they have to do with course design, delivery, content, institutional infrastructure, the learning management system, faculty readiness, and student readiness. And so the course design component really has to do with the navigability of the course that you are that you're teaching. How can students navigate your course? Is it easy for them to find what they're looking for? Is your course an elaborate maze, or can students find what they need at a glance, or is that navigation intuitive? And then course delivery, how are you delivering your content? And this is something that our department is really, really big on, and that's the pedagogy piece. Delivering that course content in such a way that it is not only beginning with the end in mind, but also making sure that you're meeting the objectives. And like Dr. Summers said, she's making sure that the students are getting what you're trying to deliver. And so that feeds right into course content, which then leads to institutional infrastructure. Now, these last four are more of a macro level of quality, where the entire institution is involved in the quality delivery of online courses, and that does take time for faculty and university to be bought into this idea of quality online coursework. But absolutely, that is a major component of quality that the university as a whole, or that the center as a whole, has bought into this idea of quality course delivery. And then faculty and student readiness. How are faculty prepared to teach their classes? And that's what we do a lot of here with our professional development. And most, if not all of our professional development, development really is in line with the QM standards. And we're teaching our faculty, although we may not always mention the QM standards, it is a direct connection to best practices and quality matters and in course design in general. And as a result, often that helps the students to be more prepared. So this is kind of all of the components of quality that QM sees in their courses. Anything you want to add, Judy?
No, I think and I love that graphic. That's a really good description of everything that is embodied within that whole QM idea and process. It's gives you the whole picture. Mm-hmm. It's nice.
Mm-hmm. And kind of the big pictures without being so granular. So the Center for E-Learning has an e-design process that is very similar to the Quality Matters process. In a way, if you decide to do the e-design process prior to the Quality Matters process, it could be a direct link to getting your course completed in Quality Matters rather quickly. So the e-design process is, and this is an abridged version of the process, is to pair with an ID, right? This process now takes a month or two, but to pair with an instructional designer, so myself, Judy Summers, any of the instructional designers that work at the FAU Center for E-Learning would be responsible for working side by side with you to prepare your course objectives and assessments, and we will walk through every single step of that design with that faculty member. Then adding course content, and that would consist of PowerPoints, lecture notes, lectures themselves, videos, pictures, any websites, readings, all of these things are considered course content. And once the course has been foundationally conceptualized, we've built that blueprint, now we can actually start to implement those pieces of content that speak directly to those objectives and assessments. Making sure, though, that those objectives are measurable and that we can actually gather documents that will actually speak to those objectives. Once we've gathered that content at start, we put them in the course, and then the course goes off to a peer review, which is an outside reviewer, still an employee of the center, but that does not work here on a daily basis, and so is perhaps a little bit more objective because she knows nothing of the faculty and nothing of the designer. So an outside reviewer.
And I would like to emphasize on that peer review is our peers are reviewing what the IDs have done to build the course. It is not the peer review of the instructor or the course itself, but it's how the review of how if the course was built according to the standards that we have set.
Absolutely. That's really an important point to note, because I know a lot of faculty often become a little bit reticent when they hear, you know, who's going to be reviewing this? Who is the peer that's going to be taking a look at this course? You know, some people are a little bit nervous or just reluctant to have their peers kind of all up in their course. So I think what you say when you say peer review, I always make sure to mention that it is ours.
It's a review of us. It's not a review of them.
Not a review of them. So then following that e-design process, we always recommend that faculty then go on to the QM process. And so in order to begin that QM process, number one thing, the course has to have been taught at least one semester in the designated LMS. So I know that FAU is currently moving from Blackboard to Canvas. If you have a course that is currently inside of Blackboard and you would like it to be QM'd, that course would need to be migrated by our center first so that it could be QM'd inside of the current LMS system or the more relevant LMS system. So that's going to be Canvas. So the process goes, the course is built, and that course can be built either through the e-design process, or you already have a course that has been previously built that you would like to take through the QM review. The course is built, and then a peer review of the course takes place. And then here's where a different peer comes into play. Dr. Summers mentioned before that inside of the e-design process, the peer is the peer of the instructional designer, so one of my peers. Inside of this process, there is a team of reviewers, and that review team is made up of one master reviewer, which is the team chair, and master reviewers have been designing, have been reviewing Quality Matters courses. They've got their certification as master reviewers, and also two peer reviewers, and these now are peers of the faculty. So one of those peer reviewers would be a subject matter expert, and then the other peer reviewer, there are going to be three in total. The third peer reviewer is going to be one outside designated person. And all of these people, very important to mention, are non-FAU and all university professors or faculty. So Judy, you're an outside reviewer. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience, that process?
It has been fascinating for me to be able to work with faculty members from all over on the team, and then the team chairs are always extremely helpful as far as guiding us through what we need to, anything in particular, and then to be able to look at courses, you know, just from other universities, and human nature being what it is, internally say, well, we did pretty well on this, you know, compared to the other ones that I've looked at. But it has always been a learning experience for me.
Excellent. And how much time does it typically take? I know they say that your reviewers spend about 10 to 12 hours inside of the class. How long does it typically take for those reviews to come back and you return them to the faculty member?
Oh, I believe it's set up as a 21-day process. I believe it's a very short time. Once it goes through, it comes back in a pretty quick time. The review team is given a specific deadline for when they need to have their reviews done, and then the team meets themselves and discusses any issues that they have found before they then come back and meet with the faculty member.
Excellent. So that review process is pretty in-depth. Your course representative would, hi Rosemary. Your course representative would provide the information for, you look very pretty today. Provide the information for, the course representative is going to provide the information for the review team, and then they would take that information and they will go through your course, and the standard to pass is 85%. So there are 21 standards on the Quality Matters rubric that are mandatory standards to be able to pass. And those are 3-point standards. If you do not meet those 3-point standards, if 2 of the 3 reviewers do not say that you meet those 3-point standards, then you and that instructional designer will kind of go back to the drawing board and kind of rectify any issues that could be found. Here at FAU, we have a really good passing rate for our Quality Matters reviews. So most of the reviews that go through Quality Matters usually come out shining. We try not to put anything through Quality Matters that we don't believe is ready to go through Quality Matters. So, and I think it's also important too that we do design for the e-design process. We do design our courses based really on the Quality Matters rubric. So it's really just a preparatory stage for you to begin the QM process. Now, if you didn't go through e-design, that is fine as well. You don't always have to go through an e-design, but you will be prepared kind of in an e-design-like process to, before you're able to go off to QM. But again, that is something that your instructional designer will take the major part of that, kind of that onus is on the ID. We make sure that we are preparing you and requesting of you only the things that are absolutely necessary so that we can walk you through the steps. But we have templated information, and we've really created a kind of a prototype inside of the learning management system that kind of lends itself to being able to accommodate what is needed for Quality Matters.
Plus, the ID will hold your hand all the way through the process, be right there with you. And many times the review team may have a question or something that the ID can respond to without having to, without it being a cause of concern for the faculty member.
Absolutely. It's a very good point. Recently, I had a reviewer. There are 2 classes that are going through Quality Matters right now, and the reviewer just sent me a quick message saying, hey, one of your syllabi doesn't have the information about the required technical skills. And that was something that I could quickly just fix because it wasn't a major, the alignment in this class is completely off. It wasn't like a huge issue. So when you have those relationships where people can reach out to you and say, hey, there's small things we don't want to ding you on, but there's something very small that shouldn't interfere with your overall review, but we just want to help you to make this happen.
The whole process is very collegial. They definitely do that. It's not a, it's not calling anyone out. It's working together with you, just like on that. This you neglected to put this in the syllabus. How about making a change so we can make sure we move forward with it? It's very collegial.
Yes. What came to mind when she said that was critiques and not criticisms, right? They even have a way when going through the Quality Matters process for training, even to work here, they tell you about how to leave feedback, right? That your feedback should have these specific. How does it improve? What did they do well? What can they do to get this to the standard that you are expecting of it? So the feedback to the QM representative and to the faculty member is always super constructive, never critical, but always very thoughtful. So if the course, a few things about QM certification. So it's valid for 3 to 5 years. Now that is depending on the rubric. If the rubric has substantial changes, then it's quite likely that your course may need to be re-reviewed, but it's unlikely. We're on the 5th edition of the rubric right now.
It just came out
recently. It was recent, maybe a year or so ago, but relatively recent. And there is, once your course has been stamped with the Quality Matters seal of approval, which is a little widget that you display in the course, that course can continue to be taught. And again, that certification is good for 3 to 5 years. So if the course does not undergo substantial change, it can be recertified after that certification is gone up. It can be recertified through a shorter review process. Okay, so looking at how the Quality Matters and the e-learning, the FAU Center for E-Learning process compares, they are very, very similar to one another in that the e-design process really is a preparatory stage for the Quality Matters process. Much of what we do inside of e-design really prepares you. You're designing now a course in e-design, which will really, as soon as we're finished, after it's been taught for 1 semester, we'll be ready to go for QM. We'll make whatever necessary changes. And one of the reasons they do that is because as the instructor, and I know you personally, Rosemary, you like to make changes for your students.
Yeah.
And that's what they want. They really want that faculty member to do. Like some things we anticipate the students are going to love this. And then we get in the class and it's clunky and it is not it's not feasible for them to be able to do. So for that reason, they require that the course be taught at least once so that we can make those notes, make those changes, change out some of that content that you really didn't like, that the student perhaps didn't gain much from, and then we put it through the QM process. So this spring semester specifically for you is going to be good, especially in a new LMS, trying out new ways of submitting assignments, etc., so that we can really prepare that class for QM, which is a very quick process after you've gone through the e-design process. So how they compare, really kind of one leads to the next. The QM process, as Dr. Summers said earlier, the QM process, the reviewers are outside. The outside reviewers, they are one subject matter expert, a master reviewer, and someone else who is outside of the discipline, outside of the university. The e-design process through FAU is an internal review, and peer is our peer. It's the instructional designer's peer and not that faculty member's peer. So we're not judging your content at the Center for E-Learning or in the e-design. It's not about the content or less about the content and more about the fluidity of the course and how the designer has been able to make your content flow in such a way that it is easy for the student to get a hold of.
And that's probably the biggest difference is that it's who the peer is. It's our peer when we do it for the e-design, but it's the faculty members' peers all around the country.
Yep.
In the QM review.
And it really is all around the country. I know.
Yes.
I just got off the phone when you were in here the other day and said, where is that person? I was on a QM call. And some people were in Virginia. One of the topics, especially in the wintertime, is always when we get on the QM call, it's how's the weather in Florida? And I'm always boasting and bragging that it is 80 degrees down here. People are freezing where they are. But these people are all over the country. You're reviewing this course. It's really very interesting. And it's so good to get other people's perspectives on your course and how they're able to move through it. Because when you design, you are a one-sided, person. You design based on the way you think you'd like to see things happen.
And we always get compliments from the reviewers about how the courses are set up.
Yes, we do.
Always.
That's thanks to your insight and
Experience.
what you all in your experience, what you do here really is.
And we
process
try very much to build our template and build what we offer to our faculty members based on what we know is going to work and what we know is going to be effective.
So you're already gearing it up to that standard.
Yeah,
So.
for sure. Basing it, absolutely. So then the common best practices for QM. Now there is a rubric, and the rubric is not published on the internet because it is proprietary information. You have to be a subscriber in order to access that rubric. Although kind of the big picture pieces that emerge from that rubric are course modules and objectives. And this is something that was really enlightening for me when I started working here at the center about the importance of having measurable course and specifically module objectives that can be articulated and then checked to make sure that those things actually happened in that unit. So if we're talking about measuring understanding, that's absolutely kind of a less likely thing that you can measure, but you can measure if a person has defined something or explained something. And so those module and course level objectives that are measurable are very important to the Quality Matters process. Additionally, moving into kind of the next big picture best practice is going to be the alignment, which is something that we talk about quite a bit inside of our e-designs. That alignment piece, which says, or which kind of compels the instructor to make sure their assessments and objectives align with those assessments and assignments align with the objectives that we set forth in the blueprint. So if your module objective is to define something, there should be an assignment that requires that student to employ that definition or to define that specific term. If there is a assignment that requires the student to explain something, it's less likely that the student will be able to explain it by taking a multiple choice test. So we want to make sure that those assessments and assignments are in direct alignment with our objectives. If they aren't, we can tweak one or both so that they kind of come together and really produce what we're looking for.
And therein lies the historical background of the blueprint. We set it up so that we can clearly show that if I want my students to discuss the importance of this particular curriculum model, then I have to be able to say there was a discussion board where they looked at the models and
Yes.
commented about them. And I have to be able to say that this definitely connects to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So varying assessments is also an important piece. Often we see courses that have 12 weeks worth of multiple choice tests. And although multiple choice tests are absolutely fine and important, we like to see, or at least the Quality Matters rubric suggests that assessment should not be kind of monotonous. It should be varied. It should be different ways to see if a student is actually meeting these objectives. And based on Bloom's taxonomy, which is something that we use very much in designing our courses and articulating our objectives, we want to see that you're moving out of the lowest realm, which is kind of definition and kind of recognizing, and moving higher and higher into creating. Excellent. She's got a list right here. Judy always has
a tattooed on her arm.
Yes,
I think.
she does. She does. Judy always has a list handy. So we want to move from one domain to the next, and it really moves from kind of understanding and knowing into acquisition of real knowledge and being able to create at the end. So varying those assessments helps you not to just understand a subject, but also to be able to replicate and create and think outside of the box and really be able to critically think, reflect, and create on different subjects. Clear instruction and navigability and accessibility, also very important pieces to designing your online classes. Are your instructions clear? Is it easy to navigate your course, or is this a maze? And then, is it accessible? Are your documents able to be read by various students with different abilities and different devices, right? Because it's not just about ability, but it's also about, does that student have the necessary material to be able to access your content? Judy has a good friend that she has brought into the center, which has truly enlightened this department. She's visually impaired and showed us her view of courses that just blew our mind. Her view is for courses that are not designed with accessibility and access in mind, it would make a lesser person quit, because she has to struggle to see everything on the screen. And this is expensive software. So the very least that we can do is produce PDFs that are not just photographs, right? Produce PDFs that have distinguishable characteristics so the student screen readers can actually pick up on those letters instead of them having to not be able to access the content. So these are kind of the big picture best practices for QM, but can all be seen inside of our personal e-design rubric and in the process that we undergo in designing for Quality Matters. I want to quickly bring up the QM rubric, or a point of QM rubric.
And this is a version that is available access online,
yes,
to be able to look at and see the overview of it.
It's a nice experience for us too, to experience a rubric, because we realize how important the rubric is in the process for our students. It's nice to know what's expected of you.
Yeah,
certainly.
You're right.
You know, I think it kind of, that realm of the unknown is not as intimidating when you at least have an idea of that. And it's easier to distinguish those things face to face, obviously. So it takes on another dimension.
Yeah.
So
we build following that rubric so that everything's all in place at the end, you know, and then go back over it again.
Okay, so here it is. I can't get on the screen immediately. But these are the major components of the Quality Matters rubric. The first is course overview and introduction. And then on the actual rubric, this is just an overview of the rubric, but on the actual rubric, it talks about every single standard. And so when we're having like conversations inside of our e-designs, often we say, okay, well, are your learners, do you have a personal, kind of an interpersonal introduction? Because that is one of the standards that we're asked to meet. Etiquette expectations are mentioned, sometimes called etiquette. Minimum technology requirements are stated. All of these things we make sure we check off inside of our personal rubric and the Quality Matters rubric. Additionally, the standards learning objectives or the competencies are measurable. And if you see a 3 by these things, these are mandatory standards that have to have been met. Assessment and measurement, varied, appropriate for the subject matter. Instructional materials, are they current? Are they varied? Are they relevant? Course activities and learner interaction. Do you have students interacting with one another, interacting with the content, and interacting with the instructor? Or which are the levels of engagement or the different ways of engagement? Is the course technology useful, or is the course technology getting in the way? And we've seen a lot of situations where we say, hey, that technology is not really necessary, right? You can just ixnay that because it's really more of an impediment to the learning than it is something that's going to help the student. So make sure that it promotes the engagement and active learning instead of just being technology for the sake of technology. Learner support and accessibility and usability, these are also standards that are very important to Quality Matters rubric, as they make sure that students are able to not only access the information, but in the event that they need some support, whether it be counseling services or the writing center or the math help center, they're able to access that support just as a student would be able to do if they were taking a face-to-face class. All right. So that is kind of, those are the big pieces for this PD. If you are interested in signing up for the curriculum process, remember, you have to have taught that class that you want to sign up for the process at least one semester prior to signing up. But the form is located on our website. I'd be happy to share this out with you. And it takes maybe about a minute to sign up, and then you'll be contacted, and one of the instructional designers will help to walk you through the process.
would you suggest that we perhaps speak to you about it first and say, hey, I have this course that I've taught and I'd like to put it up for QM. What do you think? I mean, I know you have a lot going on, but because you help us with the e-design too,
Sure.
you know, I feel like I would feel good saying, hey, do you think we're ready for this? Is there anything you think I need to tweak? And or I've tweaked this or that, or you know, I feel like I want to make this improvement before. What do you think? And then therefore we're really improving at the same time.
Absolutely transparent, collaborative opportunity to work with us. And as you finish your e-design, that's one of the things that will be brought up to you if Julie's able to sit in on that meeting, that you know you've finally finished, congratulations meeting, and consider, you know, after you've taught it, taking it through QM. So it will be it's a constant piece of it.
Definitely. And you say, Rosemary, we have a lot going on. This is what we have going on.
Yeah, that's true.
If you didn't come in, we wouldn't have anything going on. So we need you to come in and say stuff like that, because it keeps us busy. We love when you come back and say, hey, I want to move up. I want to go higher. That is exactly what we want to hear, especially when you've taken that time to really conscientiously design your course and design your blueprint. You should exhaust all the options for that curriculum for your students to be able to make sure it's quality assured. That is absolutely what we want.
And it seems to me too, because we're tapping into a whole new audience. We have obviously your face-to-face, you have your FAU students,
Yep.
but we're tapping into an audience around the country. And somebody might say, oh, let me see who has,
Yes.
say, French classes, which is what I teach.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that one has QM, that one's been
Yeah.
approved by QM. So
Sure.
it really is going to help
Yes.
encourage people to take
Yeah.
our courses as opposed to.
And we're seeing it move in that direction, right, Judy, where people are kind of, as far as the state is concerned, moving to one LMS, wanting to develop master courses. And that's what we've seen quite a few times. You develop a master course that can be pushed out to different
Mhm.
instructors or different, perhaps even universities, that can use your course as a template so that they make sure that all of the students are getting the information that they need. And that's something I think that you and Gigi have been really working hard on, developing courses that are teachable regardless of the instructor. Of course, the instructor needs to be knowledgeable, but teachable in such a way that the students are going to get that experience. I'm sure you could jump right in one of Gigi's courses and say, I'm ready to do this, because it's been designed with so much thought and not just, okay, where does everything go? And I'm sure that Gigi could now, of course, it had to be a conscientious instructor as well. It's just not somebody who's just looking to put it on autopilot, because that kind of instructor is not really a quality matters instructor.
No.
You cannot just send out an announcement once every 2 weeks and say, do the test, right? You have conversations going on in your classroom and different assignments that take the instructor engagement piece and kind of make it, and that makes the experience of the class. So absolutely. I love that idea of having that conversation, consulting either your idea or one of the ideas inside of the lab and saying, I want to move forward with this. That is absolutely what we're all about.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Okay. So that concludes, wow, it's 12:52. I thought it'd be a little bit earlier than that, but that concludes our session for today. Thank you, Mary, for joining us, and Rosemary and Dr. Summer. Thank you guys for coming. Brian, thank you very much for your help. I think we're done.
Thank you.
Thank you.